And welcome back to the Hot Lap. Yep, we are doing the F1 tier list for the Mexican Grand Prix. Happy Halloween. This is my face. Let's get into what ended up being quite an exciting race. Now, bear in mind, when you actually look at the results, you think, oh, another Max Verstappen win, which pretty much was the same for Qatar and the United States. However, it wasn't really that bad at all. In terms of when you looked at the race behind, yes, Verstappen wasn't challenged. In America, there was maybe a teeny tiny bit of doubt that he was going to be challenged. Again, he wasn't. But the races behind him aren't really that bad in the grand scheme of things when you compare it, especially to kind of like the beginning of the year, where it was the Max Verstappen show. And as people have been saying, the Max Verstappen podcast, it nearly got exciting with Sergio Perez risking it all. I think Russian roulette, someone mentioned in the comments of, I think, the race review, and it absolutely was. He risked it all. Ended up in the wall. No, I'm not a poet. I didn't know it. But let's get into our F1 tier lists, and let's speak about Alex Albon. So, Alex Albon, the Williams that kind of promised so much, especially if you looked at free practice 3, where he was 700ths or 70 thousandths, but 700th within Max Verstappen's time. Fantastic. And then we get the qualifying, and he wasn't 700ths inside. He breached, obviously, went past the white line, which you're never to do, even though some people have made a case for the fact that maybe he really didn't when they look closely. But ultimately, he qualified 14th, but he finished a fantastic 9th in the race. So, scoring what could be 2 really, really vital points. So where do we put Albon? I'm going to put him, I think, in the high B's, because he kind of stuffed qualifying. I can't really forgive him for that, because that car potentially could have been up there. He would have made Q3 without a shadow of a doubt. Let's be honest about that. Next up, Fernando Alonso. Oh, Fernando, qualifying 13th. What has happened to Aston Martin? I feel really sorry for the Aston Martin team, a team that started the season with the second fastest car. Could have won Monaco had it not been for an extra lap, let's say. Potentially could have won Monaco. Regularly on the podium, and now he's qualifying 13th, and he retired the car. I think they think it may have been floor damage from that first corner incident, let's say, with Perez and Leclerc, but he was kind of like nowhere. I mean, he's kind of getting a C, really, non-existent. But I don't think it's all Fernando's fault, but he just didn't really feature much in the race, which is really, really sad. Next up, Valtteri Bottas. So, qualifying for Bottas wasn't too bad. He qualified 9th, out-qualifying his teammate, just. We're talking like by hundreds, where he did a 1:18.032. His teammates now did a 1:18.050. So, yeah, we are talking hundreds. But, unfortunately, in the race, what happened? He kind of just went away, finishing 15th. So I'm looking at a C-grade performance for him, but one better than Fernando Alonso. Next up, Pierre Gasly in the Alpine, finishing 11th, qualifying 11th. Another C, really. I mean, yeah, the Alpine, it's been a weird team this year. They've promised a lot going into some weekends, and just been, I think, average. If you remember, they were fighting for McLaren last year for, I think, for the places, and they beat McLaren last year. And look at McLaren now, and look at Gasly now. So, because he's going in between Alonso and Bottas with the C there. Next up is, I've got here, Lewis Hamilton. So, Lewis, he qualified 6th, a few tenths off pole. After looking really, in Q2, he was fastest, and then the lap kind of went away from them, where all the other teams were improving. He didn't, but I felt he more than made up for that in the race, finishing 13.8 seconds behind Max. Yes, that red flag really, really helped him, but he was looking at, I believe, a podium anyway. And I think he did the absolute maximum that he could do in the race. In qualifying, I don't really know if that, yeah, maybe he could have gone a couple of tenths faster, but him and George Russell were fairly close-ish to each other. George Russell 2/10 off Hamilton, and you've got to wonder, unlike the Verstappen-Perez dynamic, let's say, both of them normally, get as good as they can out of the car. And that last stint that Hamilton did, absolutely fantastic, phenomenal. I think for me, he's going in the S class for the race. Absolutely brilliant. Didn't make too many mistakes over the weekend at all. Well done. Now next up is Nico Hulkenberg. So qualifying 12th. So not too bad up there. It would appear that the Haas did look better in the race than it did in the USA. I think they understand their upgrades a bit better. And he finished 13th. I think that's about as good as you could do, if I'm honest. So I'm putting him in the B, but below Alex Albon. Yeah, not too bad. Next up was Liam Lawson, who did not go in the race. Normally it's Daniel. So Liam Lawson is not there. I know you can see him there, but it's no Liam. It's all about Daniel Ricciardo. Let's swap Liam Lawson for this man here, Daniel Ricciardo. How did Daniel Ricciardo do? So Daniel Ricciardo did very well, didn't he? Hello, Daniel. Welcome back, Daniel. Where have you been for the last 3 years? Yes, he went to McLaren. Yes, he won that race at Monza, which, for whatever reason, seemed to suit his driving style. Yes, Daniel does go quite well in Mexico, but with a broken hand. And if a lot of people have mentioned that he's poking his pinky out on his broken hand, so maybe it's not as 100% as maybe he makes out. But he did qualify on the second row. He out-qualified Perez. Once again, we are talking hundredths. And he was just, I'm looking at, not that, a tenth and a bit behind Max Verstappen in the AlphaTauri. And bearing in mind, Verstappen arguably does have the best car. And he finished 7th. Lando Norris obviously passed him. George Russell passed him. Given a couple of laps, though, I think you potentially would have got George Russell. I think, considering everything going on with Ricciardo this weekend, his second weekend back, after breaking your hand, he's going... I was thinking about putting that. He's going... This is going to be the most S-classed... There you go. He's going in the S-class there. Absolutely fantastic. Is Daniel Ricciardo. So, next up is Charles Leclerc, who got the pole position out of absolutely nowhere. I don't know whether it was the temperature change in Mexico in the qualifying or something certainly changed, because that Ferrari had gone from a very meh average car to whoa. So the race, I think there's nothing he could have done about the start, and I think he lost. Both Ferrari drivers at the start, they didn't do very well. It's very much like Mercedes in 2021. But he did about as good as he really could do. No heroics other than driving around and being faster than Carlos Sainz on that first stint. Kind of, messed up the start, had a very average start. And they kind of let Max through before they realised they let Max through. I think both Ferrari drivers. Interestingly, I think Martin Brundle brought up the fact that he had a chat with them, and both Ferrari drivers, or intimated that both Ferrari drivers did not even have a plan at the start on what to do. And you sort of, when it started, kind of try to pincer maybe Verstappen, but it was too late. No plan. Very amateurish, kind of like 2021. But because he did finish on the podium, he's getting an A. I can't knock that. Next up, Kevin Magnussen. Kevin of the Magnussen. So he qualified 17th. He finished 7th. Yeah, he qualified 17th, and he finished. And drumroll, I've got to remind myself now. He finished. Well, yeah, he crashed, didn't he? Wasn't his fault with the crash though. He was the Haas that brought the crash, of course. So that red flag. So he's getting kind of like a C. He turned up. And that was really, really about it. Next up, here's an interesting one. What do you do about Lando Norris overall the weekend? Because he had a shocking qualifying. one of the worst, I think, one of the worst qualifyings of the year for Lando Norris, qualifying 18th, messing up, I think, 19th, sorry, on the in qualifying, absolutely messing up that Q1 session, and then basically not getting the lap in. Looked really amateurish. Bearing in mind, when you looked at practice on race pace, he was up there with Max Verstappen. But in the race, he did amazing. I mean, he got up to, I think, about 8 before the red flag, and then pitted. The red flag came out. He started 10th, got an absolutely shocking start, and still finished an absolutely amazing. Bear with me. Yeah, it was 5th. I wanted to say 5th. I just wanted to double check, but he finished an amazing 5th. Well done, Lando Norris. Absolutely amazing. But I cannot ignore the qualifying. I cannot ignore the very average, let's say, start. But I think overall, you get an A. You get an A. Had it not been for that qualifying, could have been an S. And also, kind of like Qatar, had it not been for the more than average qualifying in this case, could he have won? Because on the race pace, he looked very good. And what we have to remember is once Lewis Hamilton got past Leclerc, it wasn't easy for him, but he could manage, okay? Norris on those same tyres was really putting pedal to the metal and hammering around and making really, really good overtakes and really stressing that tyre out. Yet his pace was really good. So imagine if he could do a bit more management. Could he have competed with Max? Maybe, but the issue is we will never know. So next up, we've got Esteban Ocon, who once again turned up, finishing in 10th, getting a point. Well done, Ocon, finally passing that Haas. And he ended up, where did Ocon qualify? He qualified 16th, so he didn't do too bad. I think he did the absolute maximum that I think Alpine really could have done. So I think he's getting a B there. But no, he's getting a B, slightly above Alex Albon, because Alex Albon completely messed up qualifying, even more so, and arguably maybe had a faster car or a faster car driver package. So Sergio Perez. Whoa, Sergio Perez. So, Sergio, you didn't too bad in qualifying, 5th, but you were out-qualified by Ricciardo. That aside, you were within a couple of tenths of Max Verstappen. Now, then you had that first corner incident. You risked it all. I'm sorry, I've got to give you a D. I know Red Bull have kind of like been bigging him up because there's all these rumours now that it's Perez going to go, etc., but he gets a D. Now, Carlos Sainz, he turned up. He did indeed. Qualifying on the front row, botching the start like Leclerc, and finishing 4th. And yeah, I think he gets a solid job. He did a B, kind of like where you expect. I think probably a bit better than Ocon maybe. But yeah, Carlos Sainz, B. Lance Stroll. Yes, Lance. Lancey Stroll. So, finishing 17th for the DNF. Shocking for Aston Martin. It's just sad. It's just sad, isn't it? It's just really sad. So, where did he qualify? 17th, albeit. Was it qualifying 17th? No, that's fastest laps. My apologies, fastest lap 17th. He ended up qualifying 18th, once again out-qualified by Fernando Alonso by about 3-4 tenths. America, you were amazing, Lance. Here, you were very average. Alonso got a C. Yep, you're kind of getting a D. Yeah, where did you go? Yuki Tsunoda. Okay, Yuki Tsunoda is an interesting one because he qualified last. Essentially, he started last because of his penalty. He did help Ricciardo out in Q3 and Q2, which was impressive and really, really nice of him. And then in terms though of the race result, he could have finished up there. He was fighting Oscar Piastri, and he kind of obviously must have seen the screen on what Sergio Perez did and was like, yeah, I'll try that. And well, yeah. Ended up going off, and he missed what could have been crucial points for the team in that Constructors' Championship, worth a lot of money. And for that reason, there were moments where you looked amazing, but then there were other moments when you really didn't. So you're going kind of like in between Alonso and Gasly with Max Verstappen. Yeah, okay, he didn't qualify in pole. He's getting, you kind of got to give him an S. He didn't put a foot wrong. He got that epic start. The only blight was he didn't qualify on that front row. But I think the start and his race, his two starts, kind of made up for it, and he was just gone. In terms of actual driving, I think he's going behind Hamilton and Ricciardo, who I think had better weekends overall, because Verstappen in the best car, kind of expected to qualify in pole. He didn't, but then he more than made up for that in the race, and obviously equaled, was it, Alain Prost 51 victories, which is absolutely amazing, albeit with the caveat that when Alain Prost was around, there were about 16 races a season, not getting near the mid-20s, but still, fantastic race for our friend Max, for Max Verstappen, the 3 times world champion. When's it going to end? Well, is someone going to topple him? I mean, this year, he hasn't been beaten in a strength fight for the lead. The only time he has, sort of, you could argue, is Singapore. The 2 times that Sergio Perez won, Perez had the advantage anyway. It's not been like he's been on the front row and it's been beaten in what I would consider a normal weekend for Red Bull. He's just doing absolute gangbusters. Zhou, okay, not gangbusters as much, finishing 14th, albeit ahead of Bottas, but was out qualified by him. He's kind of getting a C. I think he did better than Bottas in terms of the race, because the race is more important than qualifying. But that's kind of about it. Piastri. Well, yes, he did turn up, didn't he? Young Piastri, sorry. But once again, kind of like the US Grand Prix, compared to Norris, he didn't make that mistake in qualifying. Other than that, he was just there. He turned up, kind of a bit like George Russell again, to kind of cooked his tyres, or did something to his tyres, and nearly got passed by Yuki Tsunoda. So he's getting he's going to get a high C, but that's about it, really. The same with, and it's going to be the same, I'm afraid, with George Russell. I mean, George Russell, he qualified, he finished 6th, yeah. He ended up, on the grid, he qualified, he qualified 8th. So, yes, he made a couple of places. Once again, though, really, really average. I mean, I think maybe he did a bit, him and Oscar are kind of like really, really similar there. Lots of C's. I do think this is the most S's we've given out. And last but not least, Logan Sargent, who qualified at the back, didn't even start with the qualifying. But in terms of the race, bearing in mind, Williams potentially had quite the rapid car. He finished, it was a DNF as well for Logan Sargent. So, thanks for turning up, Logan. He kind of gets a D. I think I'm going to put Perez the head of the Ds, because at least he went for it and he appeared this weekend. Stroll and Logan Sargent, unfortunately, it's like, okay, where were you? But there we go. So that is the tier list for the Mexican Grand Prix. This has been the Hot Lap. Like and subscribe. Thank you so much for anyone that's liking, anyone that's subscribing. You've been amazing. We will speak to you next time. And thank you very much. Yeah.